One of the best parts of any Disney vacation is the eating, and Disneyland Paris was no exception. I was so excited on my trip to Disneyland Paris to be able to experience a couple of the unique places to eat there. The walk-up counter service food at Disneyland Paris left a lot to be desired, both in food quality and hours of service, but their actual sit-down dining places more than made up for it. In the few days that we were there, we only got to experience 3 of them, but the 3 that we did get to experience were awesome. We got to experience Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. We had a surprise opportunity to go to the Inventions Character Buffet, and then we closed out our trip with dinner at Captain Jack's. All 3 were fantastic. So what were they like? Well, Buffalo Bill's, I actually found when I was looking online that there was a lot of mystery and kind of confusion about the show. Yes, it is a show. It's a dinner show. If you're in the United States and you have ever been to someplace like Medieval Times or Dolly Parton's Dixie Stampede, or down in Orlando we used to have a place called Arabian Nights, or any of those kinds of things, you'll be a little familiar with the idea behind this. Basically, it is a big, huge arena. You've got your seats all kind of in a big horseshoe around it, and then in the middle is a big horse arena, and you sit around on the sides. You're broken up into teams in various different ways, and then you watch this show while you eat, and then at some point your teams get involved in some sort of competition. So the first thing you notice when you walk into Buffalo Bill's is they assign you to a team, and you get a nice straw cowboy hat with a color band around it that helps designate what team you're on. We were on the green team. The first thing you should know right before you do this is it is not going to be cheap. Total for 4 of us to eat ran us about $300 US. So it is an expensive deal, but that includes all the food and the whole show. So it balances out. It's actually not that far off of what you would pay in the States for something similar. You walk in and they advise you to get there at least a half hour before the show. And that is because before you even get to go sit down, they've actually got a whole pre-show there. They had a country western band and it was playing a whole bunch of traditional old western songs, things like Oh Susanna and wonderful classics like that you've probably heard since you were a kid. And they're having a lot of fun, and then of course in the middle of this, Goofy has to come up and join them because, hey, it is Disney. You have an opportunity while you're there to just either watch the band, or if you want to go buy drinks, there's a bar right there, you can go do that. And then once showtime hits, then they start seating everybody, and they'll take you in by color of seating area first. Every area in the arena is broken up into a different color. So you have your red section and your blue section and your green section and your yellow section. Each one of those sections will actually have a role to play later on. After that, they begin bringing out the food. And I have to tell you, I was pleasantly surprised at the food. It was really good. They serve you a chili, and I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I was expecting, this is France, their chili's probably not going to have a whole lot of flavor to it. But no, it had a lot of flavor and had some good spice. It wasn't hot, but it definitely had a little bit of a kick to it, which I really liked. I like my chili to have some kick to it. Make me light up a little bit. They also had a big skillet where they would have potatoes and corn on the cob and a couple ribs and some chicken. And honestly, really good food. Unlike the ones in the States like this, you actually had utensils. If you go to Medieval Times, no, it's all finger food. But they serve it to you right at where you're sitting. Come by, give everybody basically the same meal. If you have dietary restrictions, you can let them know ahead of time, and they'll help deal with that. Have a great meal. The server's there, they're part of the entertainment, they're trying to make it fun. There's dessert, there's drinks. It's actually one of the few places that we found that you got refills on your drinks. Most places didn't allow that. And then at the end of the meal, they actually kick the show off. There's actually part of the show that overlaps with the meal a little bit, and it's styled along the lines of Buffalo Bill Cody's Old Wild West show that he used to travel around with Annie Oakley and the Native Americans, and traveling all over the U.S. to let people who are essentially on the Eastern Seaboard kind of see what life was like out in the rest of the country. It was a really neat show. Then, of course, at the end of it, well, then that's where the teams come in. Every color section gets assigned their own cowboy and their own Native American, and they begin to engage in all sorts of contests. Maybe it's throwing a spear at a target. Maybe it's running a postal express where they're riding a horse in a circle, jumping off, running across another spot, riding back around again, and then trying to stuff a letter into a mailbox. Every side is competing with each other, and you're cheering your cowboys on, and you're booing the other ones, and having a great time. And then, of course, you've got your rodeo cowboy in your own section who's helping get you ramped up and yelling and screaming and having fun and leading the cheers. It was a lot of fun. Yes, it's expensive, but we had a great time. Now, things to be aware of. It does definitely smell like horses. And boy, did it smell like horses when you walk in. I honestly, I do kind of wonder where they actually graze the horses, because this is at Disney Village, and I didn't see a big grass area there, so I was kind of curious how they got the horses in and out. A lot of fun. For me, it was well worth the cost. This was one of the meals that I actually paid for on the trip, and I was definitely happy I did. It was a neat experience, and really kind of fun to see how the French kind of look at American Old West culture, as well as to see some of the Americans that were in it. Because Buffalo Bill, he was most definitely an American. You could tell by his accent. The second place we got to eat that was really special on our trip was really a huge surprise. The family that I was with, they were actually over the Disney Hotel. They were trying to book a time in with their version of the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique to let one of the girls get a makeover and get her photo pictures done and everything else. And while there, they struck up a conversation with another lady and her daughter who were there doing the same thing, finishing up a trip. Well, lo and behold, in the course of this conversation, they strike up a friendship. The lady and her daughter are leaving, and they've paid for all this stuff in advance, including some meals that they can't use, and they've got these meal vouchers. And they're out of time and no opportunity to use it. So they blessed us with them. What a blessing it was. The vouchers that they gave us actually allowed us to have hot chocolates at the Disneyland Hotel, and then we were able to book a full meal at the Inventions Character Buffet. What a neat deal. So thank you, Letitia Wyatt, so much for blessing us. We had these wonderful hot chocolates. I mean, unlike anything you'll ever have in most places. Just over the top. I'm not a big hot chocolate person, but these things were awesome. And then you get to go into Inventions. Now, normally Inventions runs you about 69 euros a person. That comes out to about 86 US dollars each. Yeah, that's a pretty penny. When you walk in, though, it's all themed with this Victorian style. There's all sorts of antique inventions hanging on the ceiling, and then it has this huge buffet spread. This may be one of the biggest, fanciest buffets I've seen. I mean, it had all sorts of seafood. It had French cuisine with escargot and pastas and sauces, and it had picky food, so you'd have your chicken fingers and fried chicken if you really wanted that. All sorts of vegetables, an incredible salad bar and a pasta bar, and just this incredible selection. Oh my goodness, was it good food. This may actually be some of the best food that we had on our trip. Just a fantastic meal. And of course, it's a buffet. It's all you can eat. The buffet by itself might not be worth that price, but it was still definitely a more expensive quality food buffet. But then you mix in the characters. While you're eating, you actually have Disney characters that come around and get to meet you. And there's a whole variety of them. And here I really got spoiled. In the States, if you go to a character buffet, typically there are 4 characters that come around, maybe 5. Here, they had 10. That's a lot of characters. We had Smee and Captain Hook. We had Eeyore, Rabbit, which I have never seen Rabbit out for meet and greets, but Rabbit was there meeting people. Donald, Goofy, Mickey, of course, was there, Pinocchio. Just this huge variety. It was really neat to be able to see a couple characters that I had never actually had the opportunity to meet and get pictures with, and then just have some fun. It was hilarious because Goofy and Captain Hook at one point got into it and were kind of chasing each other around the dining room. Just had a great time. So while you're eating, you get to meet this huge variety of characters and enjoy some awesome food. It is absolutely expensive. It was easily the most expensive meal that we had while we were there. Whether it's worth it or not, it's kind of up to your budget and what you want to do, but we were very grateful we got to go. I don't know that we would have paid for it on our own because it probably would have been outside our budget otherwise, but such a neat blessing to be able to have the opportunity to go and not have to pay. So again, thank you, Letitia. It was awesome. We loved it. The last special meal that we had was at a place that reminded me a lot of Disneyland. And it was a place called Captain Jack's. I think originally it may have been called the Blue Bayou, which actually would have been very interesting because there's a lot of similarities between it and the Blue Bayou at Disneyland. You're actually inside. It's right next to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and you actually get to watch the boats float by as you're eating. Which actually started off interesting because they apparently had some sort of glitch at Pirates and it was closed when we got there. The ride was, not the restaurant. And the lights were on in the ride, which means you got to see it in a way you normally wouldn't. And while we were there, we were actually watching them push the boats through the lagoon and trying to get things started. And by the time we started actually eating, they had it back up and running and it looked more normal with the darker setting and in the evening. Very pretty, beautiful place. Captain Jack specializes in seafood, and I'm not a real big seafood person. Sorry, just never really have been. But the food was absolutely incredible. You have several different selections, and you can pick an individual dish if you want, or you can kind of group it by Captain's plate and Buccaneer's plate, which will include the main entree and a side dish and the dessert and everything else. I went with just the beef on it, which was really good. I don't know that I've ever had beef quite like this, but oh, it was yummy. All of us had a variety of different things and just wonderful food. This may have been as close as I got to French food on my trip, as well as what I ate over at Inventions. I'm sorry, I'm just not a daring person. Just a really good quality meal. It's definitely a slower service meal. It's not one that you want to go to if you're going to be in a hurry. I think we were actually there for almost 2 hours. Just kind of relaxed, taking our time, and enjoying the atmosphere. Things came at a nice, easier pace, which meant you got to enjoy it as it came and take some time to enjoy the food and taste it. And then, of course, we actually got visited by our host, too. See, it's called Captain Jack's for a reason, because he actually won the restaurant in some sort of poker game, I think it was. And so Captain Jack Sparrow does come around, and he gets to greet you and see how your food is and get your pictures and autographs. And so make sure you take your autograph book to that too. Just a wonderful meal, wonderful time. And honestly, those 3 meals between Buffalo Bill's, Inventions, and Captain Jack, those were some of the highlights of the trip. They more than made up for the lousy counter service food the rest of the park had. If your budget only allows counter service, go eat at Disney Village. It's going to be easier. But I encourage you, if you're going to go to Disney Paris, find a way to budget at least one nicer meal. Now, for all of these, you need reservations in advance. Seating is limited. If you're not getting booked in ahead of time, you're probably not going to get in. We were in during a very quiet time of the year at the end of March, and even then, we still needed to get reservations, and we almost didn't get into Inventions. We ended up with these vouchers that might not have been good otherwise, but we got to use them. Captain Jack's, we booked about 2 weeks ahead of time, and I was very grateful we did because it was definitely not something we could have gotten into otherwise. So plan a more expensive meal because it will be worth it, and it will let you see what Disney really can do when it comes to food. So that's where we got to experience our special meals at Disneyland Paris. Hope you enjoyed hearing that and maybe give you some other ideas. There's several other places with reservations there that we did not get to eat. There's Waltz on Main Street, there's a place in Agrabah, and there's several other places to definitely consider. Be sure to book something like that when you go to Disneyland Paris. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you too for my patrons who help support. Believe it or not, my patrons are actually the ones who ended up footing the bill for Buffalo Bills because that's where I got the money from. So thank you so much to my patrons for chipping in on that. I really appreciate all of us appreciated it, and it was a great time. If you want to know more about Patreon and supporting me, please be sure to check the link down below. Also, if you want to know about my Facebook page and my Reddit and merchandise, those are all linked below in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, and if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Leave your comments below. I'd love to hear them. Thanks so much and God bless. And yes, that picture is a little crooked and I just yanked my wire. Try that again. Okay, there we go. Thump, thump, thump. Okay. But you had utensils to cook with? No, you're not cooking the food.